So we're about a week and a half into training camp, fellas, and we're already seeing a ton of transactions, more than I thought we would see at this point. I think it's pretty awesome. I think we should start with the biggest probably trade that we've seen so far in the XFL in training camp, and that's wide receiver Rashad Ross, a very well-known wide receiver throughout the league for the LA Wildcats, is traded to the DC Defenders. The Wildcats are receiving Tre McBride. But this is huge news for the Defenders. It's a big pickup, isn't it, Pastel?
Hey, the Defenders. Yeah. So, but as an XFL fan, my first question is why? You have two receivers that are about 6 foot, similar height. Both ran sub 4.40s. Like, they're both extremely fast. And so my thinking is just like, why? Why did they trade two similar athletes for one another? Then the more I thought about it, I was like, okay, this is probably a system fit, right? So Cardell Jones, known for the deep ball. He has a really good deep ball. And then you have Rashad Ross, who's known for being a deep threat. So I think maybe this may be a little bit more sense in the XFL or the DC Defenders offense compared to possibly the LA Wildcats, where Josh Johnson, very accurate, very mobile, but probably not as good of a deep ball as possible what Cardell Jones might have for the DC Defenders.
Well, you look at what Rashad Ross did in the AAF, and he led the league in touchdowns, and a lot of those touchdowns were on big plays. And you're going to see a ton of those in Washington, D.C. With the offense that Pep Hamilton runs. They're going to run a balanced attack, but the passing attack is going to look to push it downfield. A lot of it off play action. And Rashad Ross is a perfect fit in that system to go along with Eli Rogers, who's more of a shifty kind of runner. He's not going to blow by you with his speed. So having a Rashad Ross that's a proven wide receiver that's going to break it open over the top, it's a big pickup for DC. And I'm interested to get your guys' take. If you look at, combinations, not overall wide receiver group, but just 1-2, like starting wide receivers, do the Defenders now, with the pickup of Ross, have the best wide receiver duo in the league?
I would say no. I think I still like LA. I love Nelson Spruce. You guys know that's my guy. And sources have told us that Katie Cannon has been an absolute monster at LA camp. So I really like Katie Cannon, Nelson Spruce, the way they complement each other. It's kind of that classic number one, number two mold. You've got your dynamite number one receiver in Katie Cannon, who can kind of do everything. And then you've got Nelson Spruce, who's going to work underneath. He's going to run good, crisp routes, and he's going to feed off of the attention Katie Cannon gets. I still think, to me, that's my best wide receiver duo.
I do think the Defenders probably have the best receiving core because it's a known commodity at this point. We know what Eli Rogers and Rashad Ross can do. They both have excelled in professional football. So at this point, I don't know how you can say otherwise.
Yeah. I think they have to be considered one of the top three. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, just like, you guys have said everything we can about Rashad Ross and what a game, what a playmaker that he is. I think Houston's got a pretty decent one with Sammy Coates and Cam Phillips down there. I think you're going to see a lot of balls go to Sammy Coates. I think he's going to be one of the biggest playmakers in the league with what June Jones wants to do down there. But DC's definitely up there, though, especially with the deep threat with that Rashad Ross provides you now.
Yeah, when I think about it, up in New York, you have D'Angelo Yancey and Mikhail McKay, two big wide receivers that can go up and get it. I think they're really good fits for that offense, and will work well with the quarterback in McGloin there. And then St. Louis, I know, Gles, you're really high on Pearsonell, and they just brought him back, back in, and pairing him with Terrence Williams. That's also a really good combination. But I do think that this makes DC probably at least a top three wide receiver duo, if not number one. And if you pair that with what I think personally is the best running back group in the entire league, that's going to make the Defenders offense very dangerous, because their running backs, when I saw them at minicamp, especially Jarrell Presley, was very impressive. And they're going to get the running backs involved passing out of the backfield as well. So definitely bringing balance to DC, and an explosive playmaker in Rashad Ross. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's move on. Kenny, I know you're super psyched about this one. So we talked about Landry Jones getting hurt in our recordings last week, and just how devastating that was for the Renegades and for the XFL in general. But this definitely softens the blow, bringing in a quarterback like Eric Dungey. Kenny, just take it away, because I know that even before all the quarterbacks were allocated, he was one that was on your list that you were hoping the XFL would bring in, and now he's here.
Yeah, I was super devastated when he signed a practice squad deal with Cleveland, the Browns, right before the allocations in the draft were about to take place. I think it was sometime in October is when he went. So that was a really big bummer. But I'm excited he's in the league. This guy is a dynamic playmaker. I'm a big ACC guy. I watch a ton of ACC football. This guy consistently gave Clemson a run for his money. He beat him one year. I believe it was the year they won the national championship. At least I know that.
You're right on that.
Yeah. So he's a gamer, man. When the game is not bigger than him, he consistently was able to take in my opinion, a not so great Syracuse team. Because look what they've done after he's graduated. They were awful this year, but he took a not so great Syracuse team, beat Clemson, beat all these other teams, had one of the most successful seasons in Syracuse history in 2017, and just as won everywhere he's gone. The only downside is he tends to get a little nicked up. He's a dual threat guy, 6'4", 225, but he's not afraid. He's a guy who's not afraid to throw his body around when trying to get a first down and running for it. He's not going to slide. So that's the only concern that there's been around him is he tends to get nicked up. He tends to get hurt. But the guy was an absolute dynamite playmaker in college. He graduated Syracuse's all-time leading passer. I mean, think of guys like Ryan Nassib and Dominic Nab who've been through that program, and he was the top guy. Yeah. So to me, and what was interesting too is he was allocated. He was not signed by the Renegades. He was allocated by the league to the Renegades. There's a difference.
Interesting. Yep, yeah, big difference. He's a big body boy. I mean, there's no doubt about it that I think that how Mummy could incorporate his skill set if he ends up beating out Philip Nelson for that Nelson for the spot. You guys heard anything out of camp? I know that Nelson's gotten some reps down there. Bob Stoops has come out, said he likes what he really sees. So I'm hoping that Dungey can get up to speed so we can see him play the first couple weeks while Landry Jones is getting healthy.
I haven't seen much, and I think it's going to be tough for him to
unseat. It's so early he's coming in so late to the process. I mean, Philip Nelson's been around. He was drafted by the team, so he was at mini camps and obviously learning the playbook. And Bob Stoops has spoke very highly of him. I mean, he was decently productive in the AAF for the San Diego Fleet. He was kind of in a quarterback competition there. He started out the season as a second stringer, was elevated to first string, kind of was getting his footing under him and was playing better and better each week. And then he broke his collarbone. So he didn't really get a chance to, play out the season. Well, nobody got a chance to play out the season. But that's my AAF shot of the day. But
nice.
But yeah, he just is ahead in the timeline, of learning things. But if you look at overall talent, it's hard to keep Dungey off the field. I mean, he's just coming off of a practice squad. He was very successful at Syracuse. So in terms of overall talent, I just don't know how you keep him off the field if Landry Jones doesn't start week one.
It even says on the Giants roster when he played for the Giants for that little bit that he was listed as a quarterback and a tight end. Kind of just goes ahead show.
He's a big boy. I mean, he's 6'4", 225. You get him in the open field with a linebacker, he's going to be tough to bring down. He may bring an additional element to the offense that you wouldn't have with Landry Jones.
Well,
right? Landry Jones is not going to go take off, and you're not going to incorporate quarterback runs. But
neither of those guys are there. They don't have that element that
Dungey. Right.
Double pass. Double pass. That's not bad. Yeah.
Yep. That was exactly what I was thinking. He can bring a new wrinkle to that offense, and you can line him up directly in shotgun and do some kind of wildcat type stuff with him, some single wing stuff, or you could do some trickery, some double pass stuff because he's athletic enough to where you could maybe swing the ball out to him in space and then he throws it or takes off with it.
It'll be interesting to see how Landry Jones progresses in his rehab from his knee injury. The timetable was tight. Me personally, I just don't know if he's going to be around for week one, which really sucks because they're starting at home versus the Battlehawks in that new football ballpark. So it would be nice to see Landry. I mean, he's been the face of the XFL. He was the first guy to sign. But if he's not, they have a tough decision on their hands with Dungey and Philip Nelson. But I think if he had been around as long as Philip Nelson's been around, I'm not sure this competition would be as close as it is. Another quarterback that just signed, and he was actually drafted by this team, was picked up on a practice squad in the NFL and now is back. Joe Callahan is back with the Seattle Dragons as if they didn't have enough quarterbacks already in their quarterback room. And this makes things very interesting. I mean, obviously, I think at this point, Joe Callahan's not going to be the starter, but it does say something that, he's coming right off of a practice squad, so NFL teams think high of him enough to keep him around all season, where these quarterbacks were obviously available and in the XFL. So talent-wise, Joe Callahan's got to be right there, but he's just missed so much time, just like Eric Dungey has, behind Brandon Silvers and BJ Daniels, who are both at minicamp. They're both at training camp, and that's kind of been the talk. It's a two-man race right now because Chase Litton wasn't at Dragons minicamp. So right now he's trying to catch up and not only pass Chase Litton, but he's got to also jump either BJ Daniels and Brandon Silvers. So right now it looks like a two-man race there, but having 4 quarterbacks that are all competing makes a lot of tough choices for Jim Zorn and Mike Riley.
It doesn't inspire a ton of confidence in the quarterbacks they have on the roster. That's for sure. Especially bringing one in this late in the training camp, because if your goal is just to get a camp arm, you have one. His name's Chase Litton. So it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. It tells me Zorn and Riley want to bring in some more competition and see who's got what. So who knows? I mean, we assume that Silvers and Daniels are the 2 guys going after it, but if they're not sold on them and if they think Callahan come in this late, that's got to be worth something. It's
an interesting situation. It's different though, Kenny, because Dungey wasn't drafted. He wasn't allocated. Like he's fresh into the XFL, where Callahan, he was drafted by the Dragons. So I don't know how it turned in terms of keeping that roster spot open, having the option to come back after his NFL obligations are done, and he just chose to come back. So I'm not even sure if it's more so they felt the need they had to bring him in, just that he's already allocated to the team, and he decides to come back. So he's obviously going to go where he was drafted. Does that make sense?
Absolutely does. And we're so fixated on week 1 starter, right? Like he doesn't have to be the week 1 starter. Get him into camp now. And he probably, if he takes 3, 4, 7 weeks from now and he starts week 3 of the XFL season, that's fine. I mean, the earlier you get him into camp, the sooner he could potentially start if he is that good. So, I mean, week 1 start, that's not the goal necessarily in this case.
Yeah. I think the tough part, though, especially in training camp, when you're trying to get as many quality reps and you have to spread quarterback reps between 4 people, man, that makes it tough to make a decision and for somebody to stand out and for somebody to feel comfortable in a system. So I do agree with you, Paso. It doesn't necessarily have to be the week 1 guy, but I think Seattle's bigger problem, and this is where I agree with Riley, is that, well, they have a 4th guy in there and they only have so many reps during practice. So they must not feel sold on Silvers or BJ Daniels or Littner. And Litton, it's been converted. Litton is there though, right?
Yeah. He just wasn't at minicamp for personal family reasons.
The other question I had for you guys, and Kenny, I think you know this, but guys that are on the practice squad in the NFL for teams that are no longer playing, are they extended future contracts?
Not all of them, right?
Well, no, I don't think all of them get extended future contracts. I think they pick and choose.
They pick and choose. So that's kind of where I'm getting at. So he was on the practice squad. He didn't get a futures contract. For him, this is an opportunity that he could be a career XFL player, right? I mean, if they're not going to extend one out to you, they're going to sign one, a senior coming out of college that they really like because he didn't make much of an impression. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, and they're free to and a little tidbit on that. They're kind of free to go wherever they want. I follow some weight guys who were on practice squads this year, and Greg Dortch went from once the Carolina Panthers season was over, he got offered a futures contract with the LA Rams. So
interesting.
Yeah, so it's I don't think it's automatically extended to your own practice squad guys. I think they're able to kind of pick and choose. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I do have one question for you guys. Do you think the way the rules are set up and the way that it's kind of designed to allow offense to be a little easier to flow, to kind of, we talked about this on our rules podcast, our rules show, where we said everything was kind of geared toward offense. Is that going to make it easier for quarterbacks to get acclimated and they can kind of jump in a little quicker than maybe most?
I think absolutely. I just think with a lot of the offensive rules that now favor the receiver, the 1 foot, right? The 1 foot rule comes to mind for me. I think so. That's one. The other one is the play clock, right? I think quarterbacks getting the play and being able to slim down the playbook enough to where I got to get a play in, right? And I know that I only have a certain amount of plays that they can go ahead and run. And there's also a rhythm to the game, right? If I complete a pass, I got to call a play, I got to go. I don't really have time to think about like, oh, do I really know where this guy's going? I just kind of have to know it, and you get in the flow of a game. So I think the 25 play clock could actually favor a lot of these quarterbacks that don't get as much reps in training camp.
To me, it's not even as much of being acclimated to the playbook as much as it's about developing chemistry with the guys that are going to be on the field. And like Lesnar said, it for Seattle's case, there's only so many reps to go around if you're really having a competition between the four. And right now it sounds like it's a two-man battle, but even then, like just developing chemistry, even when you get that opportunity to go on the field, if it comes, you're playing with guys that even if you were taking first-team reps in training camp, you already don't have a lot of time as it is. I mean, they had a few-week mini camp and a month-long training camp. That's not a lot of time at all to get to know guys' tendencies and whatnot. And then on top of that, if you're stuck at the third string or fourth string guy and then get your shot, you're even farther behind in terms of developing chemistry. So I just think it's a really crowded quarterback room. I'm not sure if it's a good problem to have or a bad problem to have. I think Brandon Silvers probably still is the guy that we're going to see week 1. But like Pastel said, that doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be the guy week 3 or 4. It depends how the team performs. And if the team doesn't perform well and they start looking elsewhere for quarterback, then you're going to have like, okay, well, which one of these guys do I go to? Because I got three guys, all similar talent, sitting behind me. So it's going to be a tough choice for Jim Zorn.
What's up, football fans? This is Riley from XFL Chalk Talk. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all things XFL and interact with us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, at XFL Chalk Talk.